Hey guys, Captain C.A. Richardson here with FlatsClass YouTube. Today's lesson, well, we're going to talk a lot about braid. That's right. Braid makes a huge difference in your fishing. Well, I go get everything set up in my shop so I can teach you about abrasion resistance and casting distance and accuracy and line management where you don't have those nasty tangles. You go to the water with me and one of my clients and watch this. We'll be back in a few. This episode of FlatsClass YouTube is brought to you by Aquatraction, your go-to solution for advanced marine flooring. Let's double up. You got it. Told you it was a high pressure spot. Get on the other side. Throw deep in there, Charlie, and try to get another one. Putting the power pole down. Nice work. There's plenty of them in there.
Oh, there was like 10, 15 of them in there.
It's always good to have those live action pieces that complement these lesson videos for you here at FlatsClass YouTube. Now, we're going to talk about braid and some of its attributes or benefits that is going to help your fishing game. Now, I'm going to, go ahead and say that we're going to talk about Power Pro. Now, this is the Super Slick 8, and this is the version 2. It's great stuff. The reason why I'm talking about that is because I'm a paid pro for them, and that's the braid that I have the most familiarity with. So you can draw your conclusions based off what I'm sharing with you today if you want to put it to another braid. But I'm giving you the reasons why you should be using braid. 1, sensitivity. When you're using braid, you feel everything. So if you're throwing a lead-headed jig out there and you're working across a rocky bottom, you're able to feel it. If you're working in eelgrass or turtle grass, you're able to feel it. And because there's no stretch, you're able to pull through it. It doesn't get hung up where you have to pull back this way. You can pop it off and continue to work the bait. So it enhances your ability to fish productively. Abrasion resistance is superior because you can put a ton of line on this reel, because the line diameter for, let's just say, the equivalent in monofilament or fluorocarbon is so much smaller. You can pack more line with braid on your fishing reels. Because it's thinner diameter, you're going to be able to cast farther. So you're going to make a lot longer cast when you're using super lines like braid. So for me, the abrasion resistance, the knot retention, all these things make braid the logical choice 95 to 98% of the time. There's only a few times I'll choose fluorocarbon or I'll choose monofilament, and most of that is finesse fishing, shaky head fishing, something where I feel as if I'm going to have a long piece of line in the water for an extended period of time. They're going to be able to see a lot of big trout fishing. Sometimes I'll go ahead and use mono on some of my reels, but for the most part, and maybe 100% for all of you, you're going to be using braid. Now, I'm going to tell you a few scenarios and give you a little bit more information about the Power Pro product. Back in the studio, you go to the water again with me and watch this. We'll be right back. sees it. Got him, dude.
Good call.
Sight fished him. You sight fished him. He's right there on that point between the dead wood and the live point. And
It's funny. I think
Joe put it.
I never know where your idea of this is where I want you to put it versus where my idea.
Go with my idea more.
My idea worked right there, though.
Always go with my idea.
But you didn't tell me your idea. But I'm like, shit, I'm going to throw a little bit wide because we're going to keep moving this way and I'll drag past.
It worked perfect. He saw it. We made it his idea, and that's ultimately
the key.
Ultimately what catches.
But where
every
would you
fish.
have put that? If you were casting, where would you have?
I would have thrown it up above. I don't think there was a bad spot to put that because that window was pretty narrow where it had to come through, and he was waiting for something that he could rush out and get. He was sitting in a spot where the water was slow. So he was in a spot where the water was slow, and you were in a spot. You were in a spot actually where when you threw it up above him, he was just waiting for something to come across that cut.
Because
Nice fish. Whew.
Honestly, I feel like I throw wider than what you would want me to throw.
You did fine. Worked out.
It worked out.
Right there. Always fun to fish with clients. You never know what's going to happen. And I love seeing the success when the whole thing comes together. Well, what I want you to really take from those two video segments, the first one with Rick Harnish, where he was fighting the fish in the marsh, and we were trying to negotiate that pole there. We were trying to negotiate Charlie Jones, the second angler, and make sure the lines didn't get tangled up. And then to be able to bring the fish around, that's why I want you to watch these segments, and the fish trying to run under the boat and can't because there's no stretch in braid. Well, that's why you use braid, so you have more control, fish fighting control over the fish. And in the second video with Joe, I mean, it was obvious. He didn't have to set the hook. There's no stretch here. We talked about that. None. All he had to do was lean on that fish and reel as fast as he can, and we had a good positive hookup on that redfish as well. So those are some of the attributes and benefits and features that we talked about in the first segment, other than the casting distance and how much line you could put on a spool, whether it be a casting rod or a spinning rod. But let's get back to some things that you don't think about, like that no hook set. You don't really need a hook set. How it makes your tackle better, allows you to use different rod actions that you normally wouldn't be able to use. Back when we used to use mono and even the copolymer lines, there was some give in those rods, so a lot of us use medium heavy action rods all the time, and then we never got away from those rods. Well, those rods aren't as necessary anymore. I can now throw smaller lures just as far with a medium action rod because they load and unload the bait at the right time. And now I've got braid and just lets it sail. I can cast farther than I've ever cast with small baits, and that's another advantage of braid. Something else you might not think of is your knots, your line to leader knots are much smaller with braid. They just are. They're a lot smaller than if you were tying mono to a heavier leader. So those are just a few of the things. The line is quieter, it's smoother, and with this particular brand, Power Pro, there's an enhanced body technology. And what does that mean? Well, when they say this is Super 8 Slick V2, what that actually means is they've taken 8 fibers and they've tightly wound them and then coated them with that EBT technology. It gives it a more round profile so it doesn't dig into your spool. It allows smoother casting. When it comes back to the guides, it's quieter. And it holds its slickness and its shape and color retention for much longer. And that's why I have confidence in it. And again, I am a paid Shimano Pro, so that's my line. But I'm telling you, you can draw your own conclusions across the board with whatever line you want to use. Now, for me, I have a lot of confidence in these braids. I use them in the Louisiana marsh where we're We've got roseocane everywhere. We've got all kinds of hydrilla in the water, and we constantly are pulling it off, and the braid holds up and doesn't break. Even the lighter tests like 10 and 15. I live here and guide every day on the Nature Coast. We have limestone rock everywhere. We have oysters everywhere. We have mangroves. We have Spartina grass. And I'm able to negotiate all of that with a lot of confidence because of braid. You notice that I fish a lot in Southwest Florida and in the Florida Everglades, skipping bushes all the time. Couldn't do it without braid. Same thing with fishing docks. I fished docks in Tampa Bay for years catching snook. And the ability to be able to make a hard cast, skip it up underneath there, get a thump from a snook or a big grouper or redfish, and be able to hang him and reel him out of there. Couldn't do it without braid. Never be able to do that with mono anymore. And then when we really get down to it, I do a little bit of inshore grouper fishing here with some of the guys, and it is, you literally have no reaction time. As soon as you feel a thump, you got to reel down as fast as you can and get that rod up high to keep them from going up in the little cracks or ledges in the limestone. And then recently we just did a gator hunt. Now, we're subduing 400-pound gators on braid. So that's what I'm telling you. Don't underestimate braid. If you like what you're seeing here on FlatsClass YouTube, I encourage you to subscribe and share it with all your fishing buddies. We want you to become a better angler. Until next time, Captain C.A. Richardson signing off.